Hi, I'm Greg from Omen Foils. Today we're going to be talking about the SuperMarine, who it's for, and if it can help you improve your foiling. The concept of the SuperMarine board came from Tucker at MacKite. The idea being there was a gap in the Omen line for heavier riders who were looking for exceptional light wind performance from a cross-discipline foil board. Beginners who have some natural athleticism and previous water sports experience are also finding a lot of success learning to wing on this board, and for similar reasons, it's been a standout for parawinging. The SuperMarine comes in three sizes, a 95, 105, and 120. Tucker's riding the 95 liter in all the clips that you'll see, and I'm riding this 105. First, let's talk about light wind winging. While there are heavier foilers with high skill that swear by the 84 liter flux and now the larger sizes of the Emissary, generally these boards have been more popular with lighter to mid-weight foilers. So with the SuperMarine now, we've got something specifically targeted to those heavier riders who are looking for a more playful and easier to use alternative to a big downwind sup. For sizing, I'd recommend taking your body weight plus all your gear in kilograms and matching that more or less to the literage of the boards. The SuperMarine stands out in the Omen lineup in that it's the only board designed to have the flotation and stability to be able to slog efficiently in light wind. The Emissaries, on the other hand, are longer and narrower and are designed to be ridden at a significantly lower volume. The idea with the Emissary boards is that you treat light wind riding more like surfing. So you'd get on your board, prone paddle out to the wind line, straddle it, and look upwind and wait for a set of wind. Once that puff comes, you've got the benefit of having fresh arms, fresh legs, and you give her like hell to get up onto foil. The SuperMarine, on the other hand, approaches things from a different philosophy. By giving you the volume to enable you to stand on the board even when there's no wind, with some practice and balance, you can slog very efficiently out to the wind line. So this is really advantageous for spots where there's strong currents and fickle winds, because you can just get out to the wind line faster, or similarly, if the wind dies, you know you've got a ticket home. The board sits in a real sweet spot in a couple different categories. The first is efficiency. So it's got near the light wind performance of the big downwind sups, but with the usability and wave performance of a more traditionally dimensioned board. The next spot is turning performance itself. While a long, narrow board rolls over really well, which is great for the gliding, soaring turns, a short squat board is great for pivoty shortboard style turns. Having intermediate dimensions between the two makes the SuperMarine feel really balanced underfoot, which is why it surfs and rides smaller than what the dimensions would indicate. So let's get into the capabilities of the SuperMarine as a beginner board and who it may be right for. First of all, I'll say for your introduction to winging, your first couple sessions, you want to be on the most stable board you can get your hands on. There's no point in fighting to try to balance on the board while you're trying to learn the wing and foil and everything else. And I'll say the SuperMarine is definitely not that. It is prioritizing efficiency while trying to maintain stability. The reason those big wide boards are fine for learning on is because you're also on a big giant foil, and those giant foils have a really low stall speed, so you don't encounter that much drag from the boards because you're moving so slowly. The problem becomes as soon as you want to get on a sportier foil, the increase in drag is non-linear with speed. It's actually a square. If you double the speed of your board that needs to travel, you 4x the drag being created. What this means is if you upgrade to a smaller foil before upgrading your board, you're going to be really struggling to build the board speed necessary to get up on foil. Or you're going to rig way too big of a wing so that you have the power to move that draggy board through the water, and then as soon as you're up and riding, you're way overpowered, which makes things quite unpleasant through the session. The solution the SuperMarine brings to the table is that combination of high efficiency with stability. Now, while the scale is definitely tilted to the side of efficiency, there's enough stability there if you're the type of athletic person who learns things quickly, and especially if you've got some kiting and windsurfing experience, this is a great option for you to get onto those smaller high performance foils. If you're the type of person that can pull this off as their first board, aside from some lessons, there's a lot of benefits. The first of which is that you've got spectacular light wind capability in your board. You can learn on a foil that's actually fun to ride rather than a big, slow beginner foil. Third, when you're done and you're ready to progress to a smaller board, rather than sell your big clunky beginner board, you've got this fantastic light wind board that you can use. And furthermore, when you're looking at that second board, rather than kind of look for an intermediate all-rounder, you can be more aggressive and step down to something really sporty, knowing that for the light wind days, you're covered off with your SuperMarine board. So to summarize, if you're early in your winging journey, the right time to think about the SuperMarine is when you're thinking about getting onto that smaller foil. Whether that is session number 5 or session number 50 is going to depend entirely on you. But keep in mind that you want your board and foil to work together as a system, with your board providing minimal resistance near the takeoff speed of your foil, such that you don't need very much power from your wing. Lastly, for parawinging, I think the SuperMarines are a really good choice for heavier riders. I'd also encourage you to look at the Emissary boards, but due to their narrow width and more pulled in tail, they're going to be more technical to start than the SuperMarines. While that will give you a bit more low end, the combination of stability and efficiency that we've been talking about for these SuperMarine boards is going to be key for a lot of folks to get going. The hull is similar to the other boards in the Omen line in that it moves through the water, creating the minimal amount of drag in displacement mode and maintains this low profile as it transitions to start creating lift through these flash sections in the tail. Now, the difference being is that we pushed more of this volume out towards the rails rather than keeping it more centered. And as well, we've kept a bit wider in the tail and wider in the nose, all in an effort to increase that stability of the board with minimal compromise to the low end efficiency. We've got the tracks mounted quite far forward on this board. So if you're a beginner, you're gonna wanna start with your foil right at the back. And this is gonna give you the most possible amount of volume in front of your foil to balance against. And once you're progressing, check out our video on track placement to fine tune that for wave performance. A defining feature of the SuperMarine is the shape of the tail. So obviously when water is flowing over this board, the sharp release edge is key to keep minimal interruption and drag in that flow. But as well, if this board is not traveling straight through the water and at an angle, the water has a sharp release edge to leave off of. So not only does this reduce drag, but it makes the board a lot easier to control in the water because you're not fighting a rounded rail, pulling that in and creating that counter steering action. So this makes the longer shape easier to control. As always, if you have any questions on this board or anything else in the Omen product line, shoot us an email, drop a comment below, or check out the new Omen Discord where we can have a discussion about all sorts of technical foiling content. At Omen, we're not just trying to get you on great gear, we're trying to get you on the right gear to enable you to get where you're trying to go with foiling. On that note, the best guy to actually talk to on these boards is Tucker from MacKite. Not only has he spent more time winging, parawinging, and prone foiling it than anybody else I'm aware of, he can also compare it to all the other boards that kind of sit in this general category. As well, he was integral to the design process, so can speak to it from that perspective as well. So big thank you to you, Tucker, for both inspiring and supporting the development of these boards. And to everybody else, see you on the water.